What's going on, guys? It's your boy Woodsy out here, coach of the West Virginia Noctowls, bringing you my Week 2 match for the QDL. This week we are taking on Just Dalton, who is coach of the Arizona Arcanines, and he has a very threatening stall/trick room team. I think this is a pretty tough matchup for me, not necessarily because of the presence of stall, but more so the presence of him bringing like an offensive trick room build. I think I have a lot of good answers for if he brings a stall team, such as like Heatran and Crobat, which is something that I showed last week. But an offensive trick room team I think could have a very good matchup against me, seeing as how I only have 2 Mons that are under the speed of 75. And I don't really have any hard walls on my team. I mean, I have bulky Mons like Bulu and Hurt, but they aren't necessarily like walls. They could easily be chipped through. And he has some low tier Mons that I think really threaten my team, like Ursola and Arctivish, because going back to something that I was worried about in my draft analysis, I don't really have a great ghost resist, so Ursola with Shadow Ball plus its other great coverage moves like Ice Beam, Giga Drain, Earth Power, etc. can really chip a hole in my team, especially under Trick Room. Arctivish is something that, you know, like going back to last week when I played Dracovish, I had a great answer in Tapu Bulu, but it doesn't really work like that against my Arctivish, because I could just smoke my Bulu with Icicle Crash. And pretty much everything else on my team hates taking Fish's Sprint to begin with, so under Trick Room it is another thing that could be a huge threat. He has great Trick Room setters, being Cresselia and Porygon 2, as well as like a stack of Taka. I'm not necessarily worried about getting beat by any of those Mons, but they could be great support Mons in this matchup. Just being able to come in and tank hits, click Trick Room, and switch out and be good pivots. Porygon 2 even has Teleport now, which is a great move. I mean, I think it always had Teleport, but Teleport hasn't always been a great move. So being able, I think Trick Room plus Teleport is an incredible tech. That is going to be a big deal whenever National Dex comes out and we get like Slowbro and Porygon, etc. Going past that, I think Raikou is another big threat to my team if he wants to bring like a sub-toxic protect set, which I think is likely to come. Because the only things that outspeed Raikou on my team are Crobat and Greninja, who kind of just get smoked by Thunderbolt. So if he really wants to, he could just outspeed me, click sub, toxic protect, and stall me down with pressure and whatnot as well. So getting into that, the plans that I have to beat his team start with Heatran. I think Heatran is just always a great bring in these kind of situations. You know, it's arguably the best one on my team anyway. It was built for these kind of matchups as well. And that being said, one of the things that I especially noticed with this team is that he doesn't have a great fire resist. His only fire resist is Moltres, which is something that Heatran beats 1v1 anyway. So I thought in my head it sounded like a good idea to just run specs with 3 fire moves, because I didn't really need to click anything else other than like maybe Ancient Power for Moltres. But in reality, I'm a 3-head and I just forgot that his Porygon 2 has the ability to run Trace and just trace my Flash Fire and be immune to my fire attacks, which is something that does happen in the battle, as you'll see. But I think this set would have probably still been good had I run Flash Cannon over Fire Blast or probably Flamethrower actually, because I think I need the Fire Blast damage to be able to 2-hit KO a lot of his walls. But being able to outspeed pretty much his entire team with the exception of Raikou, I could just, you know, lead with this thing, click Choice Specs Eruption, and really get a lot of huge damage right off the bat. It's something that is probably my best bet at beating that Raikou set that I keep talking about, because it can eat Thunderbolts and it's immune to Toxic. So I think just leading off with this thing is going to be good. Keeping it in the back if I need to for that Raikou and so forth, it could really chip huge holes. Past that, we have Choice Banded Haxorus, which I have for a lot of the same reasons I said I ran Choice Banded Heatran, where he doesn't really have great answers to Outrage. He does have 2 good answers in Stack Attack and Weezing Galar, but they both get annihilated by Earthquake. Since Haxorus does have Mold Breaker, it doesn't have to worry about Levitate on Weezing, it could just ignore that and smoke it with Earthquake. First Impression is a good coverage option if he does get his Trick Room up and something is threatening my team. I could Revenge Kill with Haxorus and scare it out with a First Impression and so forth. Dragon Claw is just another nice option, so I don't have to lock myself into a move if I don't want to with Outrage. And since his team is so slow, I'm really running a very bulky set with barely any speed at all because I don't really think I need to run speed. I pretty much outspeed, I think, again, everything but his Raikou with the set that I have there. Unless he wants to run like a fast Moltres or a fast Cresselia, which I don't really see either of those two things coming this week. After that, we have Crobat, who made a name for itself last week. A little different set this time. I think this is just going to be like an annoying support mon. It's something on my team that could be faster than that Raikou. It could defog, which is something that I value a lot. Taunting his team, just not letting him get up that Trick Room, not letting him get recovery on his walls, in addition to Poison Fang as an attacking move. Because for that last slot, I wanted something that I would be able to do damage with and also really break walls with. I didn't really think Super Fang was going to get the job done because it's not something that could clean up a low HP mon. So I wanted to run Poison Fang because it has a 50% chance of toxicking its opponent. So I thought spreading toxics around and stuff could be really cool in addition to doing damage with this Crobat. Past that, we have a pretty standard Swampert set. The biggest role that I think this thing is going to play is keeping Stakataka in check, because otherwise Stakataka could be a huge threat to me. Getting up Stealth Rocks and shipping him down early, spreading Toxics around is really annoying for his team. I do think that given the opportunity to get my Swampert in, it can really be annoying for his team as well, but I think the real big thing that it's going to be doing is keeping that Stakataka in check. Past that, we have a Tapu Bulu set that is very similar to the Crobat set that I ran last week, where it is attacking move, 50% move, taunt, and recover. The difference between this Bulu and the Crobat I had last time is that I think this Bulu has less direct offensive impact in this game. I don't think Hornleech is nearly as spammable as Greybird, but thanks to having grassy terrain and that Hornleech recovery, it is something that can just sit on the field, and he has a hard time breaking through it in general. It's just another mon with taunt, and not let him get up his Trick Rooms and stuff, because I think not enabling him to get Trick Room up this week is the number one thing I need to be worrying about. That's why I'll get into, I have 3 mons that have taunt, and 2 of my other mons are like Choice Band and Specs that just kill whatever wants to set up Trick Room rather than taunt it. And getting into that, my last mon is Greninja. I think the biggest thing about this mon is T-Spikes. He doesn't really have great hazard removal on his team, and clicking Toxic Spikes is something that I think could be a huge... It is something that it could really limit the turns that his Trick Room Sweepers are in on the field for, because I expect a lot of them maybe to be running Life Orb too. And it could break through his walls. A lot of his team gets hit by T-Spikes. He does have, obviously, some things that aren't annoyed by it, but in general I think it's very good. In addition with taunt, to not let him get up his Trick Rooms. Surplus Dark Pulse is just great coverage in general. The only thing that really switches into those two things is Chestnut, which I don't really see coming because I have great answers in Crobat and Bulu. And then the Metronome is there just because, since I am running like Toxic Spike's taunt set, I didn't want to run something like Specs. Life Orb, I don't really want to be wearing myself down because this is one of the few things on my team that could eat a hit from Cursola when it's at full. And I think Metronome is something that will allow me to offensively pressure his team as well, because I could just spam Dark Pulse, Surf, whatever. It's not something that I really expect to sweep with Dark Pulse or Surf, but you never know. And with that, we'll get into the battle here. He brings a lot of the things that I was specifically scared of, like Cursola, Arctovish, Raikou, and then his 3 Trick Room setters. Stakataka is something that could keep my Haxorus in check as well. This is probably like the worst case scenario team that he could have brought. I think maybe something over Stakataka, like a Weezing, maybe could have been a little bit worse, but generally speaking, this was like the team that I didn't want to see. I do have answers to all of his stuff though, mostly being that I just don't want to let him get Trick Room up, because pretty much my whole team outspeeds everything on his whole team except for Raikou. So I think that's the general idea. I am just going to do what I said in Team Builder and lead with my Heatran and hope to click Choice Specs Fire move, as he leads with his Raikou. I'm perfectly okay with that because Heatran is my check to this thing anyway. So I just click Flamethrower to get guaranteed damage. In case he wanted to click like Aura Sphere or something like that and shit me down where Eruption wouldn't be doing that much damage. This is when I realized that I'm a dumbass and that he could just go Porygon through it and pretty much infinitely wall my Heatran. So that kind of sucked, but it kind of ended up working out in the end because I got a little bit out of Heatran. Because I can still use it to check Raikou and such. I just go into my Bulu because I know that this Porygon isn't going to threaten it too much. It does have the Ice Beam, which I was maybe a little scared of, but I still eat 2 Ice Beams anyway. So after stalling out the Trick Room that it set up a little bit, I will eventually be in the front seat here because my Bulu will be scaring this Porygon with Nature's Madness plus Taunt. As we are doing here, he tries to get the Trick Room back up because he doesn't know that I have Taunt yet. And he goes into a Stack Attacker, which pretty much hard walls this thing as I click Corn Leech. I just go into my Swampert here because that is my wall. As he gets up rocks, and I will get up my own rocks in return. He just gets his Trick Room setter right back in, but I Toxic it, knowing that this thing is going to be annoying and getting a Toxic on it early is going to be cool for wearing it down. I just go right back into my Bulu because I know that it just isn't really threatened by this Porygon and it can stall out Trick Room turns. I click Horn Leech because I'm scared of him going into Arctivish and Crusola specifically, but he does have Teleport. So he could just get a free switch into his Arctivish, and I am terrified at this point. I kind of just have to play around moves until Trick Room is up, so I go into Heatran on the Icicle Crash, back into Bulu on the Vicious Ren, which I still don't really take all that well. And I decided to stay in on this turn thinking that maybe he'd click Vicious Ren again, but he does just kill my Bulu, which isn't that big of a deal. I don't think I need Bulu that bad. It would be really good in this match, but I don't think it was necessary. I have enough breakers on my team. At this point, I just go into Heatran and click that Specs Eruption and do a big chunk of Cresselia. And here I thought he would go Porygon, which is why I doubled into Haxorus to get another kill, or to get a kill. But he does just stay in and click Trick Room, so he was just going to let me kill him, but he makes a good play there, just going for Trick Room as I switch. He goes into Stack Attack, unknowing that this thing's just going to eat any move other than Earthquake that I want. I think it might even have eaten an Earthquake at that range. But I do just go into my Swampert and not really let this thing get anything going. I Scald, get some chip off, and knowing that he only has 1 turn of Trick Room, I just have to outplay this thing for 1 turn. I do predict the Giga Drain correctly and go into my Heatran, so now I am back in the front seat again. And he just lets me kill this thing with Flamethrower, which is excellent because that thing is a huge threat. Goes right back into his Raikou, which again I'm completely okay with because I planned on this Heatran being my best check to this anyway. As he reveals to be a especially defensive set, which I really didn't expect. I thought I would just straight up OHKO it there for sure, but he doesn't have like any speed or anything, which I thought he would probably run speed on this. But he does KO my Heatran because of that. So I go into Greninja as my biggest offensive threat. That outspeeds this because I'm not running speed on my Haxorus, unfortunately, because I just didn't really expect that I would ever outspeed this thing anyway. That Surf right there was actually a roll because he was specially defensive, so I got kind of lucky that I got the roll there. Because if I didn't get the roll, you know, he did mine down a Greninja for no good reason, and I don't really think Crobat was going to be all that great of an answer either. I do reveal Taunt as he goes into his P2 to try to set up a Trick Room, as he probably should have done. But because I do have the Taunt, I am able to just kill that thing. I decided I don't really need my Greninja anymore, so rather than try to switch around on this thing, I just take my Dark Pulse damage and get him in range of Life Orb and kill it. So his biggest threats to me are gone out of the way now, so that's great. I go into Haxorus here thinking that I have an easy Earthquake sweep because Earthquake is like an 88% chance to kill this Cresselia at that range. And I didn't really... Maybe I should have just clicked the Dragon move and got the guaranteed kill because I think Outrage probably 2-shot Stack Attack at this range anyway. So maybe that was a misplay, but I do click the Earthquake thinking I was just going to sweep with it, and he gets his Cresselia back up and healthy again. So now I got to be a little careful. I could potentially lose the Cresselia if I really play poorly. I do go into my Crobat because I decided it's like the least useful thing on my team, and I can 1v1 Cresselia. So I do my taunt poison fang shenanigans on this thing as he is just ice beaming me down, but I'm okay with that because I just outspeed him and can roost back up again anyway. As you'll see here. And I think this turn he goes into stack attack. Yeah, he does. He goes into stack attack as I roost up again and get back up to full. I'm just going to do what I have been doing the whole game and go right back into my Swampert, not let this thing get any chip that I'm going to just give it. I'm not just going to give this thing chip on my team for free, so I'd go into Swampert here. I click Middle Ground Skull Hold as he goes Cresselia. And I decide to just stay in and toxic this thing to like really solidify that like I'm not gonna let this thing sit here in my face. I'm just gonna kill it. I go into Crobat again because I don't. Now that he has his Trick Room up, I don't really care if I end up losing this thing somehow. So I think maybe like I could just stall out Trick Room with this thing. But he does go Hard Stack Attack, which does wall my Crobat. I defog here because I think to myself like if we're gonna play this like switch around game where like I have to predict if his Stack Attack or Cresselia is going to be on the field because there isn't any one move that hits both of those things on my team. I do have to predict if I wanted to get damage off on these things. Like this thing walls everything from Haxorus except Earthquake, but then Earthquake doesn't hit Cresselia at all because of Levitate. Crobat can't touch Stack Attack at period. And then same thing, Swampert can't really touch Cresselia. So I do kind of have to make predictions if I want to get damage off on him. So I kind of just let him take my Crobat here and get in my Swampert. I just keep making the safe play because I am still in the front seat, I think. I don't think I have to make plays, I think he has to make plays. So I just keep making the predictable plays. Because I am a fat Haxorus, I could just come in for free on this thing on the Ice Beam and just kind of eat it up. And because he is toxic, I am able to just click Dragon Claw and not have to worry about him living because it just dies as toxic, and now my Swampert beats a Stack Attack on 1v1, so we win a close one here. It was pretty tough. I'd like to say it was a hard matchup, but I had just as many threats to him as he did to me, and I think all of that taunt spamming and stuff really helped me out. And with that, we are 2-0. I will see you next week for our week 3 game.